Hello, I'm Kyle Vorgen. I'm Senior Product Marketing Manager for Quorum Software, and I'm here today with Austin Pugh from Pursuit Oil and Gas. Austin, how's it going, man?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Doing great. The drive in here was pretty rainy, but other than that, I managed to stay dry.
Well, welcome to Houston.
So for the sake of the video, for everyone to know you guys, I figured we'd start off by just giving some of your background, kind of what you've done in land management thus far, and kind of what Pursuit does and what you do at Pursuit.
Okay. So as far as land management in my career, I started my career in the land administration group at a large public E&P company. Spent about half my career there. Responsible for reporting to business units, for SEC filings, tracking all of our obligations, making payments, things of that nature. For all
typical land management processes.
Typical land management processes. Right. As we made acquisitions, making sure that we get all of our agreements input, mapped, and getting a work product out to the operations guys. Did that for, like I said, about half my career. Spent a couple of years in the operations side. Yeah. Then had the opportunity to move over to a mid-sized private equity company and build the land administration group from the ground up.
Nice. So you've had kind of both ends of the spectrum, so to speak.
Yes, yes, that's right.
So to speak. Nice. And so now you're here at Pursuit. What do you do for Pursuit?
So my title is Senior Landman. However, we're a very small company here.
Multiple hats now?
I wear multiple hats. The description's pretty broad, everything from negotiating the leases to inputting those leases into our system, making the rental payments, tracking those obligations, working with geology to put together our development plans, back to the mineral owners to get the amendments necessary to execute on that, to settling damages, creating the pay decks, and then finally, making royalty owner address changes.
Jack of all trades over here.
Yeah, it's pretty much full cycle. So,
were you a landman at the bigger E&P company too?
I was for a couple of years.
Was the role different working as a landman at a big company as opposed to a smaller mid-sized cap company?
Absolutely. There's a lot more divided, the different functions and roles. Here, like I said, I'm everything. Right. There, it's pretty well defined. As far as access goes, it's different depending on the function you're in. So,
did you just use the land system you're using at the E&P company? Were you in that less often as you are now at a smaller company? Does that make sense?
Honestly, I'd say it's about the same.
Really?
It's something that's so vital, especially on the operations side, sure, to have access to be able to. You're pulling up leases, you're reviewing agreements. ArcMap's open all day, every day. Sure. So,
and that's kind of something you hear in the industry is that landmen are just map oriented, right? They look from the map. Even whenever I was at NAPE last week, and the conversations a lot were like, "Are you guys a tract-based system?" What does tract-based system mean to you? For us who don't know that.
Well, the way I look at it, there's two types of system, lease-based and tract-based. Right. I feel that no matter what, you've got to be tract-based.
Okay. At least have some of that functionality.
That's correct. So ultimately your lease is what guides your agreements, right, but if your ownership varies within those leases, you've got to have those tracts broken out and you've got to be capturing that. Sure. So that's really what I view, and that's how we use Quorum as well.
So it's not really so much like you have to get a tract-based system only or a lease-based system only. You really want to find a land system that gives you functionality of both worlds.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. And I know that you've had spreadsheets before using a land system at an enterprise company. So how did that go?
It's a tool, I guess. At previous company, at enterprise level, we had Quorum land there, and we use that a lot. Here, at first we're utilizing spreadsheets, and private equity company I was at before as well. We utilized a lot of spreadsheets because we didn't have a system, and it's a Band-Aid. And the more complex your situation is, the harder it is to operate off of that. Right. It just kind of filled the gap between systems or getting our system implemented.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned that before last time we talked. You said that you guys were, looking at acreage and you were thinking about drilling, and spreadsheets were good to an extent, but then as more complex as it gets, yes, the harder it gets to use spreadsheets. So
that's correct.
You want to elaborate on that?
At best, you're capturing the agreement level data. Sure. You can capture the parties, lessor, lessee, and dates. But especially in our area with a very complex ownership situation, yeah, you might have one lease, but it might have multiple different ownership tracks with different non-pars and NIMIs that you've got to keep track of. And yeah, comes time to make that extension payment, who are you really making that payment to?
And you're having to sort through columns and rows and spreadsheets, yeah.
That's right. And ultimately you're going back trying to find your MORs, because again, you want to be able to total up that acreage, so you have it on a single line basis, but then there's just too many nuances that from an operationally that you can't capture in a spreadsheet.
So as we, and that brings up my next point, as we embark on 2020, what do you think of the industry right now in land management?
Every year's a new year.
Right.
It's really hard to say. As far as land management and I guess for me, the land administration side of it, the way I see it, there's been a change on the operations side where operations land wants to be involved heavily in the land management situation. They're no longer content with going to having a land admin group that, hey, I need you to go pull leases. They want to pull leases themselves. They're building maps themselves. We're not going to.
And these are like the drilling operations group?
Your land operations who's working closely with drilling operations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So they're wanting to do all that work themselves.
Nice. Why do you think that is, the kind of close-knit bond now that's forming between those groups?
I think a lot of it is
data oversight?
Well, and the tools are easier to use.
Sure.
They're a lot more powerful and they're a lot more approachable. It makes it a lot easier. I mean, now you can even use your phone for pulling up leases. It's not things have gotten a lot more accessible to those groups. So having a delay of, well, let me go request that from the land admin group. Let me go have them build a map. We'll get back to you in a week. That's not acceptable.
Right. Let me run this report and hand it over to so-and-so.
That's correct.
As opposed to just sharing it.
That's right. I mean, I'll get a text message from senior management while they're in a board meeting. Hey, one of the board members wants to know how many acres do we have that are going to be in producing status at the end of second quarter next year? And I'm expected to turn that around in
no problem. Yeah.
Minutes, so.
Yeah.
And now we can.
It's actually here on my desk.
Exactly.
So I hear that. And I'm sure that you've seen a big transition from whenever you first started in land management to now. Like you said, technology is just
absolutely. When I first started, again, your land negotiators, your operations land guys were not creating their own maps. They were making a request, and a week later they get a big paper map, roll it out on their desk, pencil on there, here's the changes, then hand that off to geology. Now they're going to pull the shape files themselves, export it, and send it right over to geology, and then, hey, we'll meet and talk about this in 30 minutes. Let's figure out where we want to put the sticks on the maps.
Right. And I assume, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but like software now probably helps whenever landmen are negotiating with landowners because they're able to enter that information and store it and save it as opposed to scribble, 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 I'm going to hand this off.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, like I said, having the access anywhere, especially with a cloud-based system or mobile, is really helpful. You can be sitting in an attorney's office trying to negotiate a lease amendment, and he's sitting there claiming that his client didn't get paid damages on the last well, and you can pull it right up on your phone and, okay, let me go into the system. Oh, here we go. I got a copy of the signed damage receipt release, and here you go. So
the impact of software is definitely huge.
Absolutely.
And we were talking earlier, you used Quorum Enterprise Land. Now you're on my Quorum Land on Demand, which is, we built that out specifically for the small to medium-sized market.
Yes.
And we figured differentiating those two was a good thing to do. Do you want to elaborate on that since you use both? Do you think that's a good avenue to go down, having an enterprise solution built for the enterprise companies and having a cloud-based solution off the shelf for some smaller companies?
Absolutely. First company I was at, obviously it's the enterprise level solution.
Sure.
We had a lot of different roles, a lot of different functions. Being able to have the flexibility of security changes for all these different roles, depending on the land divisions that they're in. Plus the flexibility for kind of all the different situations and configurations that you can do within the.
You may need customization as a bigger land department as you have in an enterprise solution?
That's correct. So it really makes a lot of sense there. When I left that company and went to a mid-sized private equity company, we actually implemented Quorum Land Enterprise, the enterprise version, which was a hard sell to management, but $100 oil helped a lot.
Right.
And it was, a really good solution with the integrated GIS.
Right.
Coming over to Pursuit, where we're a much smaller company.
Getting off the ground, yep.
It's Enterprise wasn't going to
right
going through that implementation.
Doesn't fit the budget.
It
makes sense.
It really doesn't.
Right.
So we learned about my Quorum Land on Demand, and the fact that we'd get nearly the enterprise functionality, especially with the integrated GIS solution, the easy reporting, the fact that we could get all that at a price that made sense for a company with less than 15 employees was.
And that's kind of the reason why that product was born, right? Is because we know that as smaller companies get up and going, they need a solution that is budget friendly.
Yes.
First and foremost. If I'm coming from spreadsheets and I'm going to invest in software, it better not be in the 6 digits, right?
That's right.
But also for that, it needs to give me the functionality I need to just do my job more efficiently and get on with my day.
That's correct.
It's kind of the two pillars I would think as a small company, but you tell me if I'm wrong.
No, that's absolutely correct. And really at a small company, you have the flexibility to adjust your processes ever so slightly to take advantage of the system as it is. And
you have less users.
Less users. I mean, we expect everybody to have full access.
Sure.
All 3 of our users on the system.
And that's you brought up a good point. You said reporting, so I wanted to kind of talk about Land on Demand. What's the value you guys are seeing out of that system since you've been using it?
Reporting is huge. Like I said, the scenario where I'll get asked questions in the middle of a board meeting. Can you tell me these numbers? I can pull that together, in a matter of a couple minutes and a few clicks, and that's something that you really don't have that flexibility with spreadsheets. You can't pull together, trying to pull together a report on multiple spreadsheets, as you can imagine, just doesn't work.
And I remember last time, I think you told me a story, it'd be awesome for you to tell it again, is you were talking with your GIS mapping guy, and you were asking him if he's mapped something yet, and you were like, "Oh, don't worry about it, I'll just run a report and I can figure it out."
Absolutely, and that's, those are tools that we use. I use that as we're going through our input process and everything as well. I can easily track, just less than a minute, where are we at, who's done what, and what type of agreements have gone in, where's our acreage.
And that's using the ad hoc reporting, the drag and drop features?
Nice. Absolutely.
Very nice. And that's integrated to GIS as well, so you have that taken care of on that end, right?
Yes.
As we were talking about earlier, track-based functionality, you need it. So what about the just managing your obligations in the data? Is that a lot better?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Giving you visibility?
Absolutely. I can run reports as far as payments, obligations. Right now, payments are such a huge thing. Extension payments, those are clocks you don't want to miss.
You don't want to lose the lease.
No, absolutely not. So it's been crucial and critical to our business to be able to quickly run those reports. And now we can do that, and we're confident in the.
And you have the dashboard, kind of tells you where you are, what you need to look at, that kind of thing. So I imagine that's helpful.
Dashboard's really nice. I like seeing those graphs there at the bottom. Here's what I've got expiring, and hopefully here's what I got expiring with extension payments.
You like seeing those zeros. You have nothing to do.
Yeah. or seeing that at least the leases have got extension payments that we can make. That makes it a lot easier on the land side.
Exactly. What's the support and the training like for Land on Demand?
I really like it.
I think it's we kind of rolled it out. It's a new virtual online training that we do.
And that's incredibly helpful. Like I said, most of my career I've spent with Quorum Enterprise. Probably trained hundreds of people over the years as made acquisitions, and I wish I had a tool back then like I do now on Land on Demand with the little videos. It used to be I'd have to sit for probably a couple days getting somebody trained and up to speed on how to use the system. Now with those videos, people can they can sit down and go through and just screen by screen get up to speed, and if they forget something, not coming and asking me or held up until they can get a hold of me, they can just go right into those videos and here's where I need to click to run this. So that's been that to me is a huge thing.
And I know that your customer success rep is Tiffany Sacedo, and she's been, from what I understand from you, very, very on hand, ready to answer your calls. Right?
Absolutely. So if she doesn't answer the phone when I call, I get a return call within minutes, it seems.
And I think you hit on that earlier about when you were at the bigger company using Enterprise, you wanted to be able to just call someone at Quorum right away and get that answer, right?
That's correct.
nowadays you have people log tickets, things of that nature. But
yes, and I've been dealing with Quorum long enough. I remember when I could pick up the phone and call and get somebody. That was a long time ago.
Right.
So this is a welcome,
refreshing
to see that again, to have that. And with that said, almost every time I've called Tiffany, and like I said, she's been great. She always kind of ends if you would have watched video number 27, it was, I think it was covered in there. So
she's reminding you. Remember that video that you watched 2 weeks ago? Let's watch that one more time.
Yeah. So, which again goes back to the level, the detail that's already in the system. So that's really good to have.
Well, I don't have much else to ask, and I appreciate you sitting down and talking with us today, Austin. Really appreciate that a lot. We'll be in touch, and good luck, man, this year.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.